Welcome to Exploring Sovereignty with Elizabeth, and we are in studio with guest co-host and friend of the show, Sharon Crowley from the Om Center of Healing in St. Paul, and we have the delight and privilege of being in conversation today with Eric Christopher, who is a psychotherapist and hypnotherapist located in Minnesota, but I think you work with people from all over, correct, Eric?
Yep, that's right. I do Zoom sessions all over the world.
And we're so happy to have you in studio to talk about how you got started in hypnotherapy and past life regression, because I know your background is in you have a master's in marriage and family therapy.
Yes.
You're a spiritual hypnotherapist that specializes in helping people connect to their higher self for present life healing using past life regression.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And it's brilliant work. I can attest to that.
Yeah.
And I'm just delighted that you said yes to this invitation to be on Exploring Sovereignty.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me on your podcast, Elizabeth and Sharon. I really appreciate being here. Well, basically what my passion is to help people have an experience of connecting to the soul part of themselves. One of my favorite spiritual teachers is Adi Ashanti, and he said, when you awaken spiritually, you see that life is like this greatest sleight of hand card trick. We go through lives totally identified with these bodies and the ego and this body-mind personality. While at the same time, there's a part of us that we can't escape from. I mean, one day we won't be our body, but try as you might, you can't not be that light and energy and consciousness that animates the body. I mean, that's what you're going to be after this body is no longer. And
absolutely.
So that part's eternal. It's indestructible. It's outside of time and space. And you cannot escape from that part of you if you tried. So the idea is, well, we should be able to tune into that which we already are, that which we can't escape from. And I discovered, yes, we can. we can tune into more solidly, make a more solid connection to our soul self. And so I use hypnotherapy as a way of, it's all about quieting this analytical thinking mind. And I guess that's the idea behind meditation. But then if you couple that with hypnosis and hypnotherapy and then a guided journey, you can really deeply connect more with your higher soul self. And what I would say is another way of calling it is your intuitive self. And that will show you precisely what this body and mind needs to grow and evolve, heal, move forward, and whatever. So I guess what I would say, in a nutshell, my practice is all about where spiritual awakening meets the therapeutic realm, and it's a merge between the two. And Carl Jung once said about healing that healing is a subtraction process. It's more, we already are whole and complete, and it's about releasing any limiting beliefs or thoughts or traumas, thoughts, feelings, beliefs that cover up the brilliance of who and what we really are. And so what I like to do in sessions, whether I'm doing half the time I'm doing present life healing, but it's all about connecting them to my clients to their higher self. And then from there, we can see other lives your soul's lived before, or see whatever lives you're meant to see that can help this life move forward, or we can do present life trauma healing work. Or inner child. It's a great place to do inner child healing work while you're connected to that higher soul self, because the traumas get stored in the body and subconscious mind. And this is a way of being above the timeline of your life while you're connected to this part of you that doesn't have any fears and feels whole and complete. And it feels a lot safer to do do inner child healing work or releasing of traumas and such while you're connected to this higher part of you. So we can release it from the body and subconscious mind and get back a part of our own light and potential that was somehow lost when the traumas or negative beliefs came in.
And it gives It
Yeah,
gives people a higher level feeling and thinking state to
absolutely.
witness from, right? And so are you finding that more and more people in the last few years are searching for that intuitive higher self connection? I know it
Right.
feels like that in my practice.
Absolutely. I think what's becoming more and more as the consciousness level of the planet raises, more and more people are becoming aware of that idea that we are these eternal soul beings using this body.
Mhm.
Growing up, my dad was a minister, and that was just a concept. The fact that we're these eternal soul beings and we're using this body, that was just not even on the radar. It was just all, yeah, well, this is who I am, and I have a soul, and something happens to it after you die. But there's no focus on. Um, there's so much evidence these days that we are these eternal soul beings. There's enough evidence, and I think the evidence of that would be the evidence of reincarnation, because there's
Mhm.
no evidence of reincarnation that I like to say even a logical minded skeptic can believe in reincarnation just on the sheer evidence of it these days, if you look for it. But evidence of that is evidence that, hey, there's a part of us that's eternal and indestructible that just goes on and on and on. And we should be able to tune into that part of us that has the higher wisdom and the transcendent feeling, the transcendent experience that helps you let go of all those subtle people that do a past life regression or this other type of present life healing work that I do. A subtle byproduct of it is the fears of death kind of fade away because you're tuning in to something that awakens you unconsciously, like, oh, I do transcend this life and all the worries and concerns, and it's very powerful. So it can be very healing on different levels and layers.
Well, and from a Vedic, since I know you tap into the Vedas and
Yeah,
yoga tradition,
yeah.
our greatest fear is death, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
if we can transform that into understanding that it's a transformation process, that we are transforming our energy from one form to the next.
Yes.
Sometimes I think about it like water, right? Water can take many forms, but
Mhm.
it's from the gross, like maybe it's ice all the way to the mist.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
we're just in that constant process. And then it's like I can surrender that fear and other things don't grip me as much.
Mhm. Absolutely. It has a trickle down effect of releasing a lot of other subconscious fears that we have. When you tune in and really experience an aspect of yourself that transcends all of your body and
Yeah.
all of the negative beliefs and programs that go along with your body. It's like you connect to a part of yourself that doesn't have those same fears and limiting beliefs. And it's an experiential process. And that's half the reason why it's very powerful.
Totally. Okay, so let's back up for one quick second,
Sure.
because I think for some of our listeners, and Sharon, chime in here, reincarnation might still be a newer idea.
Hmm.
So you glossed over that,
Yeah.
and I think it's worthy of a moment or a pause
Mhm.
for you to talk a little bit more about that. Don't you think, Sharon?
I do, and I would actually like to kind of jump in with my own question for you,
Sure, of
which is,
course.
as you were speaking, of course, I'm thinking about the onion that we're peeling.
Yeah.
I'm I am because I'm into the sound and frequency. Everything that you're saying is jumping out at me as frequency, and it's
Mm.
transmuting energy. And my sense is that when we leave this body, we transmute to a different frequency.
Yes, definitely.
And and so being that, as you were saying, Elizabeth, it takes different forms. I believe all those different forms have a different frequency.
Yeah, I
Yes.
agree.
And so that
Mm.
would be, so one of the things that I see is that if we get into a more peaceful, higher self, higher frequency, peeling the layers is a very subtle, almost peaceful release.
Yeah.
And as you said, we get up into that, broader view,
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe if you could just speak to that for me
Mm-hmm.
or anybody that may understand, because I think once I was able to grasp
Yeah.
everything has its own frequency, it
Yes.
it changed my view,
Yeah.
because I was able to relate to the different forms, whether it's gas or whether it's
Yeah.
water or ether, so if
Mm-hmm.
you could speak to that a little bit, just so that maybe some of the listeners that are unfamiliar with those concepts, it's actually a
Yeah.
fairly simple thing that relates to things that we've been taught.
Mhm.
Sure. Well, I
I
like
think you're
to use an example. You can see this pin here. For those that are just listening, you can't see it, but I'm holding a pen in front of me, and then you move it really fast. Why you can't see it. It's like a fast moving fan blade. You can't see it. Well, it's moving really fast. Well, you know, uh, when we die, that light and energy and consciousness is just vibrating in a higher level of vibration. And people think of heaven as being a million miles away and our loved ones being a million miles away. No, that they can be right here in the room with you, but they're just at a higher level of vibration that the vast majority of people don't see them. And some people do. Some people have that gift, unless you have a psychic gift. Um, and they can communicate with us as well on the other side as well if we're open to it, and we can train our minds to do that, to have intuitive development classes. And
yeah.
I
yeah,
agree. I concur.
Elizabeth has,
Yeah.
but
We
yeah, and
I
if
teach that.
oh, but talking about moving to a higher level of vibration, um, uh, I see that all the time. After a person does a past life, when they're doing a past life regression, they can live a life and be in a very traumatic, uh, die with a lot of, say, maybe they commit suicide, maybe they have a lot of heavy emotions and thoughts where their vibration is still really low.
Mhm.
In
But,
that past life, in that past pattern
in
or
that past life.
simultaneous. Yeah.
But as soon as we move to a higher level of vibration, and most souls will move once they die, that you'll feel, when I do past life regression, I'm saying most people, when they come to the end of that life, they'll feel their consciousness just, it's almost like an energy current. They move to a higher level of vibration. When
Right.
they do that, they're automatically more love based.
Mhm.
They're more they got a lot of insight and wisdom and clarity. All of a sudden they see, oh, that's how that issue relates to this life, and oh,
Mhm.
Right.
that's where the depression carried over, or they see why their higher mind showed them that life to begin with in the first place. It's always something that's going to help this present life move forward and grow and evolve. But you get those clarity and insights when your vibration raises. And when you do past life regression, the real healing part of the session is towards the end, when the life is over and your whole vibration moves to a much higher level. And when that happens, you have I've got a zillion examples of this. You get examples of people then sometimes communicating with loved ones on the other side that have passed over, or spirit guides and such.
Mhm.
And I'll be sharing some of those examples a little later. But
Yeah.
that goes with exactly what a raise in vibration and frequency does.
Right.
And sometimes I think for people where reincarnation or past lives it's hard to wrap your
Yeah,
consciousness around. I think sometimes I'll introduce it to people as past patterning that's still influencing your present moment,
sure.
and that we can resolve that through
Hmm.
that higher level, higher self connection and the
Yeah.
spirit guides that, want to work with us, because we're just carrying that pattern until we
Yeah.
learn the lesson. And once we're willing to understand what the learning is, it
Yeah.
releases, and
Mhm.
those heavier thoughts, feelings, emotions, behaviors that have been influencing us,
Yes.
that sometimes it's like you can't trace it back in your present life, but it's
Yeah.
influencing your present life,
Yes.
you're suddenly free of. And I know the work that you do, and the work that, um, that supports people in that, and
Yeah.
really gaining that insight and wisdom and freedom,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
being more sovereign from those past patterns that no longer serve them.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Well, and I would jump in and say, ultimately, at least some of the things I'm sure you see and that I've gotten to see are that then it affects physical health, it affects relationships, it affects on so many levels, just because you're able to transmute and release.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I know I can speak to that, and I think Eric can too. And we are going to speak to that in a few
Yeah.
moments.
All right. Yeah. Yeah.
We are in studio today with Eric Christopher, who is a psychotherapist and hypnotherapist, and who specializes in past life regression to help people become more sovereign. Stay tuned as we return for our next segment.
Right.
Are we good for a minute?
Yep, you're good to go. Yep.
So he's not recording right at the moment. How did that feel, Eric?
Wonderful.
Awesome.
Very good.
You're just speaking my language. I love everything you have to say.
I know, right? Eric is so fun.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to talk about how I started. I don't know. But
Should we dive into how you started for the first few moments? Like maybe give that 5 minutes, and
Yeah.
then we'll
Yeah.
give, because your case studies can take a while. So I want to make sure
Sure.
we give a good 10 minutes for your case study and a minute for your promo.
Okay.
Not to be too prescriptive, like don't
Yeah.
feel too.
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. No, I get it. I understand. So
I just want to make sure that we hit everything for
yeah. Yeah. Well, that sounds good.
Does that sound good?
Yes.
And then you can do another case study in segment 3 if you want. We'll just
Great.
we'll
I got
kind
so
of,
many case studies.
I know you do. I
Yeah,
want you to write a book.
It's hard. I know I should. I feel like I just don't have time. I figure if I ever retired, I could write a book because I just got pages.
You would. Yeah,
Pages and
someday that will come.
pages of case studies,
I know you do. Someday that will come.
Because some of them are just truly amazing. So much so that I'm not amazed anymore. I'm just really confident that their own higher self is going to show them exactly what they need. And it totally works that way.
Totally. Okay, let's start so we don't lose any of the good stuff off recording.
All right.
If that's cool.
All right.
Sounds
ready?
good. Yep.
All right. Sounds good. Here we go. Next segment.
This is Exploring Sovereignty with Elizabeth, and I'm in studio with guest co-host Sharon Crowley, friend of the show, and we are speaking with Eric Christopher, who is a psychotherapist and hypnotherapist located in Minnesota, but works with people from all over the world, and he specializes in healing your present life by resolving past life issues that may still be influencing you.
Mhm.
And Eric, we didn't get a chance to talk about how you got started. Like,
Okay.
I know originally you were a marriage family therapist, but how did this evolve?
First of all, I'll clarify, I also do present life healing too, inner child healing work. But I would say half to 2/3 of my work is with past lives. And how I started, I trace this back to when I was traveling around India, when I was just after college. I had worked teaching English in Taiwan, went to India, decided to work at the Mother Teresa Home for the Destitute and Dying. And when I worked there, the first thing I do is go in and they tell me to sit with this man because he was dying. And so I sat with him and he's talking to me. And but I'm telling him I don't know what you're saying because he was speaking in Bengali, which is a local dialect. But as he's talking, he just reaches his arms out and I hold his arms. He's looking in my eyes and he just dies right in my arms. And then his body became this shell. And we later then took this shell of a body and threw it on a burning pyre. And something clicked in me that said, wait, whatever I was talking to was not that body and shell.
Mhm.
And you just have to, whenever you're around someone that's alive and then they're dead, you realize, oh, what I was interacting with was not this shell. And so that's what got the wheels spinning. Like, what? And going back to Einstein's theory of conservation, like energy never never disappears. It just transmutes,
Right.
Right,
Back,
right.
burn a bag of garbage, it converts to gas. Well, I just was thinking, well, how we are these souls having a human experience. And of course, everyone in India believes, that's the way they're seeing things.
India will transform anyone who goes.
Absolutely, it will. Absolutely. And so then a couple of years later, then I read this book called Journey of Souls by Michael Newton, which is a therapist, a psychologist who used hypnotherapy, told his clients to go to the source of their issue under hypnosis. And by accident, many of them are going into past lives. He doesn't necessarily even believe in reincarnation, but a few of these lives he researches and verifies. But then what he does is he has people, and Michael Newton in his book, Journey of Souls, is a great book. A lot of case examples, but what he often will do is just take someone to the end of that life and take them deeper into the spiritual realm, getting a sense of, oh, what does your soul do in between these lives? And he ends up doing that for 3,600 people. And there's so many amazing consistencies with what the people are saying that he realizes this is far too many consistencies to just be mere coincidence. And so, but when I read that book, there was something that clicked in me that said, I would love to do this type of work of connecting someone to their higher soul self, because every time he did that, they got so many insights and clarity, and people would talk about a feeling of going home. And when you go home and you feel the energy of your spiritual home, all the subtle little fears tend to melt away. Fears of death, etc., fears of not being good enough. They don't make sense in that higher vantage point. So how powerful it was to be able to, my thinking is, how powerful is it to be able to help someone connect to that their eternal soul part of themselves. And so I vowed to get training with this guy before he retired. And fortunately, I was able to do that.
Wow. Wow.
And so I got a degree in marriage and family therapy, but my passion was more learning different modalities of hypnotherapy, of connecting one to their own eternal, more permanent self, which contains a lot of insights and wisdom. And so that's how I got into it.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds to me like it was almost like a download where the path was laid out in front of you. Much like, I'm sure, when you're working with people, their path comes down and lays out. So
Yeah.
it's pretty fantastic that you were able to experience it yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
You talked about case studies
Yeah.
that your mentor, who you learned from and were trained by, kept. But I know you keep case studies. Is there any you would like to share with our listeners that might inspire them?
Yes, sure. I've got several hundred case studies.
Do you have one that you could share this segment?
Absolutely. Well, what this is, it's when we do this hypnotic process, you're actually connecting more to your own higher self. One of my clients' guides said, just as the body's instinct is to breathe, the soul's instinct is to grow and evolve. So that soul part of you knows exactly what life or lives you should see to help you as a person move forward and grow and evolve. And I was just going through my hundreds of case studies. Actually, there's probably closer to 1,000 here but a woman comes in because she's afraid she's scared because she's seeing and sensing spirits around her, and it freaks her out. She's afraid. So she does a past life, and she sees a wonderful life where she's married with her husband, but she dies prior to her husband. But then she realizes that she just doesn't pull up into the spiritual realm right away. She more wants to hang around her husband. And so she does that. So she becomes a spirit herself that's hanging around the earth plane. And she realizes that, some of the things she does will kind of scare and startle her husband. And so it freaks him out. So she has to be really gentle in communicating with him. But then eventually he dies, and then they both move up into the higher vibration of the spiritual realm. And when she moves up to the higher vibration of the spiritual realm, she gets an experience of communicating with her deceased grandmother in her present life. And when she does, it's not like she sees her the way you see with your physical eyes, but she gets like a download of this person, of her grandmother. And it's just an inner knowing. And even though her grandmother presented herself as being much younger than when she knew her, she knew intuitively that it was her grandmother. And her grandmother was trying to tell her not to be afraid of spirits. And then she goes on to explain how to help these spirits move on to the light, or move on into the deeper into the spiritual realm if some of these spirits seem to be earthbound. So therefore, it's like she comes to the session, she's afraid of spirits. There's nothing I can say that's going to say, oh, you don't need to be afraid. Nothing's going to take away that fear. But her own higher mind knows, and her own soul mind knows exactly what she needs to see.
Is she sensing Is she sensing and feeling spirits around her in this life?
In this life. That's why she's
freaking her out. Okay.
And they're freaking her out. That's why she came to do a session.
Great.
I have another question too. When she came out of her session, did she have very clear and vivid recollection of the actual session?
Absolutely. Anyone that does, and that's what I tell people. People are afraid sometimes by doing deep hypnosis because they think they won't be awake and aware or in control, but you're always awake and aware and in control throughout the whole process. So yeah, she remembered everything. Plus, I always record the session for my clients if they want me to, and plus I'm writing down notes. But the gist of it, she might forget certain details of that regression, but the main gist of it, she'll never forget. She'll remember that. Okay,
so continue on. We didn't mean to interrupt, but a couple of clarifying questions there.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. I mean, so another case example, a woman just came to me earlier this summer because she was like worked in a hospital as like a nurse, and she all of a sudden, out of the blue, she gets this anxiety and panic. And she says most of her life she had anxiety and panic, but it really got tripped off while working at the hospital, listening to all these beeping sounds and stuff all around her. So we do a past life regression because she says intuitively it feels like the fear that I have seems really deep, like it's more than anything that happened in this life. She had an intuitive sense. Goes to a past life where she sees herself as a man. The man, I don't exactly remember what through that life, but it was a difficult and traumatic life that as a man lost a lot of loved ones, and he ends up having a lot of depression, so much so that, by the way, he's a pilot in that last life. He just so much depression that he's suicidal. And when he's flying a plane, he just flies it intentionally right into a mountain.
Oh, wow.
The last things that she heard was while he's flying in the plane, there's all these controls going off, beeping.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
And it triggered, when she was working at the hospital, it triggered this. This is how she died. And there's panic and fear while she died. And so her soul in that moment, and this is another rare instance that her soul, a sliver of her consciousness got stuck there, where it's not her entire soul, but a sliver of her consciousness got stuck there, because she said that after that death, it was low vibration. It was hard to move up to this higher vibration. So then we did an exercise where you just take all of the heavy feelings and the depression from that life and feel it in the body and energetically release it. Let it go. All the fears, all the depression, the heavy, dense energy, let it go, release it, and then get back a part of your own light that was somehow lost when you were carrying all the heavy thoughts, feelings, beliefs, fears. And so she got lighter vibration, then was able to move up into the spiritual realm. She saw that life, saw this life, and she could see, exactly the carryover and how the fear started. Now, and then she emails me a month later and she says, by the way, with that session, my anxiety and fear was totally gone. She had to quit her job. Not quit, but take a leave of absence from the job at the hospital because of too much panic and anxiety. And so that's where she sought me out. But she said, by the way, after that session, it was totally gone. I could easily go back to work again.
Isn't that great?
Yeah. And so absolutely, it's very, very, very powerful. Her own higher mind knew exactly where to go to and the source of the fear. And something I would like to add is, the Tibetans are very spiritual people, as we know, and they will say that when you die, try to die as peacefully as you can, because we have a physical energy body, a mental energy body, and an emotional energy body, spiritual energy bodies. And when you die, if you die with a lot of trauma or a lot of heavy negative thoughts that somehow get unresolved, when you die, usually, you'll die, but your soul will move up to the higher dimension, usually, and it'll be free of it. But then when you reincarnate, that leftover residue, physically, mentally, and emotionally, can carry over and impact a future incarnation. And so that's what the Tibetans say, and I see evidence of that in nearly the vast majority of past life regressions I do there. It's about healing.
I agree. And I see that often as well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I see that often as well, because I think, and what has me so curious in my own life is like, how can I make my minor transitions more smooth? Like meaning from waking to sleeping, from leaving my house to going to another place. How can I make those conscious transitions at the lower level so that when the time comes for me to transcend from this body into a different vibration, I can be more conscious of that transition and have that be more peaceful mentally, emotionally, and physically, and more a conscious death. Is a conscious happy death. That's the conscious happy transition of leaving the body.
Right.
But Eric, tell us where people can find you who might be listening for a moment.
My website is ericjchristopher.com, and that's Eric with a C. The initial J stands for Jonathan, my middle name, Christopher, ericjchristopher.com. And that's where you can find me. If you like case studies, I have like 13 or 14 case studies on there, about to add more on my website. But that's where you can learn about it. This type of work is my passion. So I've got lots of articles that I've been writing over the past 20 years that are on that website. Articles about this type of work.
Awesome.
And and other spiritual awakening kind of blog articles from other people
resources
put on there.
It's you're doing brilliant work, and I'm so delighted that you're in the world with us doing it. We will return for more conversation with Eric Christopher, who is a psychotherapist and hypnotherapist that helps heal the present life, the inner child, as well as past life regression, so that you can gain the wisdom from past patterns and set yourself free on Exploring Sovereignty with Elizabeth with guest co-host Sharon Crowley.
All right.
Okay.
Here's segment 2.
Sharon is going to run to the restroom. Do you need a bio break or are you good, Eric?
Oh,
I'm
gosh.
good. I'm good. I just wore some
Do you need
Depends.
the restroom, Eric? Oh,
What's
you're.
that?
Oh, wait, hold. Sorry,
on.
Eric. I have your mic off. Try again there. Yeah.
Oh, good. That's good. I was joking. I
Oh, do you need
I
the
don't need to
restroom?
use the bathroom. I'm wearing Depends. I'm kidding.
Oh my God, you're funny.
Yeah.
Do you know
Yeah.
that one of my brother's friends, he had 5 children, has 5 children, and
Yeah.
they would go out east every summer. We're not on the air, right? I'm not.
No, you're on
okay, yeah,
nothing right
good.
now. Correct. Yeah.
And he would make all his kids and his wife wear Depends or diapers so that he didn't have to stop
Oh
on
my
the
God.
drive.
Oh wow.
I
Yeah.
was like, if people
Numerous-
aren't good, they're going to have a little bit of healing work to do. But
Yeah,
oh
I
my
would
God.
say, yeah. That's yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I wouldn't do that myself, but
No, I wouldn't either. But
yeah.
that kind of sums him up a little bit.
Wow. Yeah.
Anyway, I think it's going well. For segment 3, let's definitely, if there's another, do you want to share another case study or do you want to move into, I don't know how long you need to talk about what a session's like. What's a
no.
typical session be, like, and where else you want to go, because I'm happy to go in many different directions.
Yeah. Well, maybe I'll quickly share another case study.
Sure.
And then share about what a session will look like.
Yep. And then and if there's any like simple thing, like call to action someone could do, if not like, I don't know if the call to action is the right word, but like if people are listening and they haven't come to see you yet, but is there a micro thing they can do to work on it? Maybe not, but
well, like if they're having an issue, what they can do to help work on it or heal it.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, yeah, I would say something like that would just be tuning in and feeling the energy of
Perfect. That's what you could say. Yep.
Limit the
Great.
energy in the body. Yeah.
Yep. Just say something like that and I'll cue you up for that.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I'm ready. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
So he's going to do another case study. He's going to share about what a session looks like and then what people can do to start healing themselves if they, aren't working with him or someone. And he'll talk about feeling it in the body. And then he'll do another 60-second or so thing promo of him before we wrap.
Sounds good.
So feel free. We'll just try to stay on that train.
Yes.
and feel free. You and Sharon and I will toggle back and
Yeah.
toggle back and forth. Excuse me. Like you can ask them, like, tell us about what a session looks like. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Just so we make sure we get each other's voices in. Cool. He'll take that one. Okay, we're ready when you're ready, Brett.
All right, sounds good. Bring you guys right in here for the final segment. And stand by. Here we go.
Welcome back to Exploring Sovereignty with Elizabeth and guest co-host Sharon Crowley, very good friend of the show. And we're in studio with Eric Christopher, who is a psychotherapist and a hypnotherapist who supports people healing their present life, healing issues of inner child, as well as any past patterns that might stem from past lives that he'll support people doing past life regression. So Eric, we were in the mix of you sharing case studies. Is there one last case study you want to share with our listeners, just so they have a feel of the different kinds of things that I know people come to you for a multitude of reasons.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So they have another taste.
Sure. Absolutely. And because what I'd like to say is your own higher mind knows exactly what's going to be helpful and beneficial. And, I just had a guy here yesterday and I had seen him a month before, and we did a past life regression, and a month ago. Yesterday we just did more of a present life healing, but we done a past life regression before because of his anxiety that he had. And especially, I would say, when are you most anxious? Well, whenever he would talk to his older brother or people of authority, he would just tense up, get very nervous. It's because his older brother growing up bullied him a lot, made him feel afraid, and he'd be put down and criticized, and he'd feel really small and less than. So, well, his higher mind showed him a life where he was a leader in a tribe who was like actually a woman, but as a woman lived in an indigenous tribe in like a jungle atmosphere, but was very much a leader and very much respected. As this woman grew older, and this is his past life, he could just feel the respect and the wisdom that she had and that he had. He could feel that. And when that life was over, he moved up into the spiritual realm and just say, wow, that was a very powerful life where I just had a lot of innate wisdom, and I had a strong connection to spirit and nature, so grounded in nature, and was looked up and admired by so many people. Well, that carried over. When I saw him yesterday, he said, we did that past life regression a month ago, but like about 2 weeks after that session, he was with his brother, and normally he'd be all tense and worried. They're talking about their parents' care. And but this time his brother all of a sudden was more deferring to him for insights and questions and his own inner intuitive wisdom. What should we do here? And he didn't have any of that anxiety anymore. That was so much dissipated. It was like a big layer of it had left. So sometimes, that's why I like to say, sometimes you'll see a life that's a fantastic life. It doesn't always have to be a traumatic life. And if it is a traumatic life, one of the biggest fears of people is, well, will it make things worse? No, it will never make things worse. Reason being is because when the life is over, you're tuning into that eternal part of you that transcends. It transcends the worst of the worst. If you had a traumatic life, you feel yourself totally transcending that, the part of you that survives and lives on and on. So it never re-triggers a trauma ever. You only see a traumatic life because it's somehow affecting you physically, mentally, or emotionally. And you're only seeing it so you can acknowledge that and energetically release that, so it no longer, in fact, impacts you physically, mentally, or emotionally. And so it's actually not a bad thing if you see a traumatic life. But either one, there's, whether it's a fantastic life or a traumatic life, or sometimes you see a real boring life too. And
what do the boring lives do for us?
There's many boring lives out there. Usually there's always a soul lesson involved with that. And soul lesson might be, when that life is over, I always ask the question, if you were going to live that life all over again, would you do anything different from the vantage point of the soul? If you're going to live that life from the vantage point of the soul in this now moment, would you do anything different or go through it in any different way? And usually you do see things that you do different. And like a boring life, they might say something like, yeah, I guess I wouldn't let my fears hold me back. I would take risks, or I wouldn't guard my heart so much after a loss. I would love and love deeply and hurt deeply, but then love and love deeply again, and have the courage to do that and be alive, or, and I'd be more proactive in creating the life that I really want to live, rather than just kind of let life happen to me and be like a bystander kind of. So yeah, even boring lives will have our lessons.
I would wonder if sometimes it was a reprieve from one that was not so boring prior.
Yeah, it's
Like,
true.
I'm just going to take a break.
Absolutely. According to Michael Newton, we'll have a couple of challenging lives, because it's the challenging lives where we tend to really grow and evolve as a soul. But then after a couple of challenging lives, we'll tend to have a nice vacation life where it is,
Dolores Cannon said that too.
Yeah.
She
Oh,
said similar. She said you can never judge someone in their life because
yeah,
they may have just wrapped up a really challenging or difficult life
absolutely.
and be in a boring life or a vacation life or a whatever, preparing for the next
Yeah.
iteration of what they need to do for their soul's growth.
Oh, this reminds me of last Friday. I'm going to very quick, another example.
Sure.
Someone did a past life regression and they wanted to get to the bottom of why they had addictions in this life. And well, we saw a difficult past life that related to the addictions, but the soul, when that life was over, went really high in a high vibration, deep, deep into the spiritual realm. He started, and soon, right away, he starts seeing the eternal part of friends in this life. So
Mm.
keep in mind, we're multidimensional beings, and we don't take all of our soul energy with us. So there's always a certain percentage of energy that we leave behind. So he sees his friends. But one of the people he sees is his I said, call upon your spirit guide. And he all of a sudden he sees a spirit guide, which is his grandfather in this life.
Hmm.
And he just says, oh, I really love my grandfather. He's like way ahead of me in levels. He's so wise. I have such love for him. But in this life, I don't really care for the guy. In the present life, the grandfather just kind of kept to himself and never really connecting and heartwarming. But his soul was a very high advanced soul, and it was his guide. And so after that session, he saw his grandfather in a different light, and he was going to go. I suggested that maybe he ask his grandfather a question like, well, have you ever considered the thought that we're these souls having a human experience, and see if that triggers something in his unconscious, or maybe he's quiet because he has all this wisdom and he just doesn't want to share these outside the box concepts because he might be look crazy to others. So you never know. So it kind of goes back to that, what you were saying, Sharon, is you just can't judge. You can't judge. And maybe that was Elizabeth that said that.
That was Elizabeth, but I'm right there with her.
That was Dolores Cannon and Michael Newton, but
Right.
all the people.
Well, and that leads me to the next question, which is actually it's probably a two-prong questions. What is, first prong being, what are some of the common things you hear from people that are seeking your help? And then the second part of it, what is that like with you? Is it a couple of sessions? Like, how does a normal session look with you?
Well, a session will last about 2 to 3 hours. If someone is coming for the first time, it's going to be closer to 2.5 to 3 hours. And the reason people come, many times they feel an inner nudging, or they're starting to awaken spiritually. When I say awaken spiritually, it's like they're awakening to the idea that, hey, I'm a soul using this body. Or another reason why they would come is they just would have like a strong emotion like anxiety or fear, and it seems like it outweighs something that anything that happened in this life. So that's why they might want to come and do a past life regression session.
Right.
Or occasionally they're interested in past lives and are just curious. And so I like to have people make a statement of intent for the inner journey when they come. And so many times it's like, show me, a statement of intent might be, show me a life or lives that can most help me understand this stabbing pain in my heart that I seem to have and then the doctors can't find anything about, or this heavy anxiety that I have, that I felt most of my life. Is there a deeper, what can I show me a life that can most help me understand and heal and release that? And so people might come to that, or people can just come out of curiosity and they might say something like, show me, as a statement of intent, show me a life or lives I've lived before that would be most helpful and beneficial for me to see, that's most affecting this life. And so you can be, it can be wide open, or you can have a really specific intent. Or if people sometimes say, I just would like an experience of communicating or connecting with my higher self. Past life regression and in the present life healing that I do, it automatically does that. automatically, seeing things from a higher vantage point.
Are people ever difficult to hypnotize?
Yes,
Or
sometimes they can be, but that's why I find that people that are somewhat intuitive have a much easier time with past life regression, because there you're turning it over to your unconscious mind and letting information drop into you.
Sure.
Someone that's highly intuitive will just go with it. Someone that isn't necessarily hasn't exercised those intuitive abilities is going to say, "What? I'm making the whole thing up." They can have a profound healing session that heals things. It's not uncommon for someone that have an absolutely profound healing session and get answers to the questions they were seeking, and actually feeling heavy energy letting go, but then afterwards say, "Gosh, it kind of felt a little bit like I was making that up." But they get healing results either way. And I like to say, well, look, if you want to interpret that as a symbolic metaphor that your unconscious was showing, fine, you'll have positive results either way therapeutically.
For sure. Do
But
you, for listeners who are, maybe sitting with the possibility of doing this work, is
yeah.
there something you could invite them to do that they could do in the moment for themselves if they want to heal or release?
Well, if a person has an issue to heal, and something's bothering them, maybe it's a trauma from the past, I think a good way is just to tune in, and since we are energy beings, so just tune in and feel that energy in your body. And then whatever scary trauma or whatever that you're carrying, it translates just to energy in your body, stuck energy that's in your body. And as you give your full focus and attention on that stuck energy in your body, that is to say that fear energy or anxiety, information will tend to, as your consciousness goes deeper into it, it tends to dissipate a little bit, and sometimes a lot. And it also insights and clarity about the source of that tends to drop in. And when that happens, you can feel it in your body. And if you want, you can tell your mind, you imagine a door there and sending it all out into a huge incinerator outside of you, and then getting
I love it.
light. It is much easier to do that when you're in a trance-like state.
Sure. And when you have some support, but if people
Absolutely.
wanted to try to release and heal and transform something they're
Absolutely.
holding, that's a great
Yeah.
invitation.
Yeah.
So, Eric, where can people find you?
People can find me at ericjchristopher.com. That's Eric with a C. That'll have all my contact information. My phone number there on my website is a landline, so don't text. I won't get it. But you can email me at eric@ericjchristopher.com, and all kinds of information about this type of work. And what I would also say, that many times people are real interested in it, but they don't know if they want to jump right in and do a deep dive regression right away. So I also offer informational sessions for an hour, $80 for an hour. And it's a generous hour. And it turns out to be a little bit of a counseling session as well. But I can walk people through the process, answer any questions they may have.
Thank you so much. You've been so generous with us, Eric and Sharon.
So enjoyed it. Thank you.
This is Exploring Sovereignty with Elizabeth and guest co-host Sharon, as we spoke to Eric Christopher, who is a heart-centered thought leader exploring sovereignty and what sets us free. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
All right, here we go.
I think we hit it all.
Yeah.
I mean, not all.